Other approach is family branding. This is where you have one brand and have it cover multiple products. The advantage, of course, is you're spreading the brand development cost over many products. The disadvantage is that if there's a problem with any of the products in the line, it could affect negatively on the brand, and you get what we call brand dilution. As to at some point, even with Coca-Cola, if I say to you, you want to have a Coke, that's just kind of starting the conversation, isn't it? Did you mean Coke Light? Did you want caffeine in it? Did you want flavor in it? So what does a Coca-Cola mean? The good news, and this works really well for similar products. So you go to the soup aisle, for example, and you've got the Campbell's distinctive red and white can, and that distinctive logo covers dozens, if not hundreds, of products. And the brand promise has to be appropriate for every product in the line. And their promise is nutritious soups that don't take up as much room as the soups that aren't condensed. And then a line extension is where you add a new product to a line. And we had talked last time about cannibalization, recognizing that every time you add a product to a product line, some of the sales that are going to come to that new product are sales from customers that you already had. You just need to be aware of that. Another branding strategy, I call it price lining, the good, better, best strategy. I think some people call it flanker brands. But the idea with the price lining is I will have multiple brands in the same category so that I own the category. So when it comes to beer, Anheuser-Busch, what's their flagship beer? Budweiser, what's their premium beer? Michelob, now they got the Budweiser craft beers. And then if you can't afford Budweiser, there's Busch. And if you can't afford Busch, there's O'Doul's. But the idea is that regardless of where I am in the beer spectrum, I can find a product from Anheuser-Busch that will satisfy my needs. And this is, why would Budweiser introduce a beer that's less expensive than their flagship brand? Is because there are probably customers who are looking for a less expensive beer, and if you don't put it out, somebody else will, and you lose those customers. And then brand dilution is when you go too far with line extensions and you start to lose meaning for the brand. I remember a couple of years ago, Starbucks had a short-lived experiment with, what's Starbucks brand promise? Say again? What was I think it always tastes the same. It always tastes the same? So what do you expect from Starbucks? Expensive coffee that you have to wait a long time for, yeah. Speaking as a Pete's fan. So what's Starbucks brand promise? Yeah. Consistency, consistent. So what temperature is the coffee when you get it? Boiling hot, unless they put ice in it, right? And then they intentionally put ice in it, and you have to understand that when ice goes in hot stuff, it melts. But so Starbucks brand promise is a nice hot cup of coffee, and in fact, when people license Starbucks, part of the agreement is the coffee has to be served at a certain temperature. So let's try Starbucks ice cream. Starbucks ice cream. Coffee flavored ice cream, because, well, they don't sell it anymore. But again, so the Starbucks brand promise is a hot, tasty cup of coffee, and then all of a sudden Starbucks also means frozen food. Confusing to customers. So this is the idea of brand dilution. If you spread that brand name too far, then it starts to lose meaning to the customer entirely. Another way of taking advantage of brand equity, again, you've got that multi-million-dollar investment in that intellectual property, is there's a couple ways of leveraging. One is licensing, and this is where you sell the right to use the brand name to unrelated products. So I think Coke does over $1 billion a year in licensing the Coke brand name for things like sweatshirts, tchotchkes, clothing, all of those things that are branded with a Coke. And that's all plus money. Actually, I'd read that before this person started running for president, I'm not going to mention any names, starts with T, ends with rump. But the most of his money was made not through investments, but through licensing the Trump name. And I would get participation in a project allowing you to use the brand name, but the idea of leveraging the Trump brand name, leveraging that brand without having to put your own money at risk. So it's plus money if you can do it. Another way of leveraging brand equity is co-branding. And this is where you have two branded products that work together to get some kind of a synergy. I have here Reese's Puffs that are made with real Reese's peanut butter cups. So every time I look at that cereal, I'm reminded of Reese's, and also I'm reminded of the cereal. So it's a nice connection there.